So I struggled with thinking, with not understanding at first that the consecration was more about my heart than my body. It
Mm.
was.
Well, welcome back to the Man Fast podcast. I'm your host, Tamika Hall, and we missed last week. Oh my goodness, we missed last week. I had to preach in New York, which was always cool. And I came back, and y'all, your girl was sick. I was laid up, like sprawled across my bed for days, literally. So I just gotta say, I'm an advocate of us wearing masks again because I don't know what happened, but I was fine that morning. And I literally felt the sickness coming on me. And I was on the phone with my cousin. I was like, I think I'm getting sick. I need to get off the phone. And I was there for like 48 hours. Like I had to put my child on the Uber to go to school and everything. It was all the things. So I gave myself grace. I want to ask you, have you given yourself grace this week? Grace to not be able to do everything. I gave myself grace last week and I allowed myself to just get better. And I'll say, I'm excited about today's episode. I'm really, really excited. I'm going to introduce you to a sister, a friend of mine, this prophetic voice. And she has a really incredible testimony, and I can't wait for you to meet her. So, without any further ado, I'm excited to introduce you to Elder Kishia Robinson. How you doing?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Hall. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, Man Fast Pod family.
I love that. The Man Fast Pod family. This family has grown. It's been so cool. We just launched the Bible study the other day,
Yes.
and it was really, really dope to have women from all over the country. Elder K, they were y'all. She's an elder, so even though we're friends, I don't know why we do this to each other. We vacillate between calling each other first name and even title. So you just have to get used to it and follow us. But we have women from all around the country and all ages. I mean, 20s
Oh, that's
into
dope.
the 70s.
That is dope.
Yeah, there were obviously
That's,
single women. There were some women that are in the active stages of dating. And then I even had
mhm.
a number of married women that were on as well.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And what was amazing is that after it, I had
Mhm.
women that were messaging me and saying, listen, I decided to put this down, or I blocked this person. I walked away from this relationship that was going nowhere for years from a Bible study. Like, who would ever
This is
ever
a
thought that
movement.
God's word would do that?
That's what it's supposed to do, right?
That's what it's supposed
Yes.
to do.
Not a conference, but the word itself is supposed to transform us. And
It has been amazing to me, just this ride. And I appreciate you because you have been supportive from the moment that I even just spoke the fact that I was working on the book, and you've just been really, really supportive of it the whole entire way. And I'm just really, really grateful for that.
oh, you're welcome. When I remember the moment you told me, and I just thought to myself, wow. I was like, bless her, God. I was like, let the book go far and near. Let it be translated in multiple languages
Wow.
because no one teaches you how to really hold on when the natural part of you wants companionship, wants a certain level of physical intimacy, especially if you've experienced it before. So I was so excited. And from that moment on, I began to pray for you.
And it's amazing because people always say, what can I do for you? Prayer is the biggest, like that sometimes is the thing. It's like, give me prayer, pray for me,
Mhm.
because the attacks are great. Anytime we have an assignment on our life, the attacks are great. And so I appreciate that. And so, Elder K, you are a prophetic voice. You are a businesswoman. You're an international best-selling author and publisher. You're a mentor to women. You're a certified Christian counselor. Who else are you?
I'm a mother. And first and foremost, I am God's daughter.
I
And
love it.
so I think because I am his daughter, it translates in every area of my life.
Mm.
So the way I love people, the way I communicate with people, do I fall? Yes. Do I have a short temper sometime? Absolutely. but I am his daughter. I am the one who never wants anyone to feel like they're left alone or no one cares. I really feel like I'm his arms, I'm his legs. I love to empower not just women, but men, because so many people are so busy and so caught up in their own lives. And so a text message, a phone call, a smoke signal from someone they would never expect is just what he's allowed me to do. And so I'm just like his little whisperer on the earth.
How did you walk into that? Because I love the fact that you said, I'm his arms, I'm his legs, like I'm his mouthpiece. How did you know that? Listen, I'm an extension of him.
um, I honestly, I think just spending time with the Lord, because there were times when I felt like I was all alone. I have been on my own since 4 months after my 17th birthday. And so there were times when I was physically alone, I was mentally, emotionally alone. There was a period of time when I was estranged from my natural family and I felt disconnected. So I became connected to the Lord. And then what he did for me is he began to send people to me and create pockets of family. Some people would stay longer, some people would be just for a short period of time. And I remember feeling bad because I was always the person who was reaching out. I was always the person encouraging someone or thinking on the bright side. I cannot tell you how many times, Dr. Tamika, how many times like close sister friends of mine would get on me. They would chastise me in a way because I will give people the benefit of the doubt. Because, they're the middle child or
Making excuses.
they're so, and they would say, Keisha, you're making excuses for people. I said, no, I'm trying to understand the root of
Wow.
the person. And so sometimes people behave in certain ways because of what has taken place in them. So they all they know is to, what's the word I'm looking for, is to be hard, is to be combative, because no one just simply cared about them without having an agenda. And so, yeah, I just think just spending time with the Lord and learning to be okay that it's okay for me to just love people.
Wow. Did you obviously had to, because I do know some of your backstory, and I know you
Mhm.
probably had to go through a process of healing and probably even a process of forgiveness to be able to love people beyond their shortcomings. Because when people have shortcomings, they can be prickly, they are users, they will betray you. And it is amazing the way that we can love someone when we allow God to heal our brokenness. Is that where is that kind of what happened with you, that you were able to evolve into this person, or have you just always been this way?
I think I've always had a heart to love and to love people. But this person that sits before you was not always here, right? I had to go through times and seasons and backtracking, because sometimes we think that healing is linear. We think it's one road to healing. No, sometimes things happen and we need to revisit it. So there was
Yeah.
a period where I had to be delivered, not just healed from abandonment.
Mm,
I had to, the Lord had to, and I'll give you a quick short story. I remember my father and I, we reconnected. And so we've had an interesting relationship. And the Lord began to work on my heart concerning him. And my son was a young boy, and I was a married woman, and the Lord told me to go visit him. And so at the time, I was living in New York, and he was living in Virginia. And they have what we call the Chinatown bus. You would go down to Chinatown and take the bus to Philly or take the bus to Virginia. And so I remember getting on the bus and going to see my father by myself. My husband didn't go, my son didn't go, and I spent approximately 36 hours with him. After I left, I remember getting on the bus and I remember crying because
Wow.
I learned more about him in that 36 hours than I did in my entire life. And what that showed me was is that here I couldn't be angry at him because he didn't have the capacity to give me some of the things that I needed. And so when I began to cry and I started writing in my journal on the bus ride back home, the Lord said to me, "Do you understand why?"
Mm.
Now, why he couldn't be there. And so I from that process, I had from that moment, I began to gain a level of compassion, not just for him, but for other people. Because sometimes we want people or we expect people to give us something they don't have the capacity to because no one gave it to them.
My
We're
God.
asking you to give me something. No one ever showed me how to forgive. No one ever showed me how to love. And so if I don't know how to love, how can I love you?
Uh-oh.
And then how can I love you if I don't know how to love? And so the Lord had to take me through a process of deliverance. He had to take me through a process of forgiveness. I remember clear as day, he said, "Give up your right to be right." Because my thing is, I wasn't wrong. I was a child.
Yeah.
Or even when I was an adult, I was an adult. And how could so and so, not just parents, but how could so and so do whatever? How could they say this? How could they like just lie? And every time I think of that, even today, I think the Lord said to give up your right to be right. He gave up
Woo.
his right to be right so he can take on our sin. So who am I to hold offense against everyone? And so just and then finally I will say is it is a constant journey. I am constantly like reading books and doing a heart check on myself to make sure that I'm remaining unoffendable, trying my best not to take on someone else's behavior and internalize it as my own rejection. And that's
Uh-oh.
hard.
My God. You just
It's
dropped like
hard.
5 atomic bombs on us, you know? My God.
My Lord. He's been so good to me. And do I cry? Absolutely. Do I hurt? Absolutely. If you cut me, I'll bleed. But, you know, sometimes we just have to relinquish our feelings as much as we can.
It's so funny that you talked about capacity because that was the Bible study. That was my topic just on
Mhm.
Monday. And I called it the capacity to hold and be held.
My
And
Lord.
I had a moment where I saw someone that I had not seen in almost 2 years. And this was,
Mhm.
this is the person when the Lord said to me, "Give me a year, no distractions." I walked away. Nope, I didn't even give words. I walked away from what was probably going to be a situationship, and I just completely shut the door on it. No explanation, nothing. And I saw this person on a live
Mhm.
last week, and for a moment, like I was okay, but then I wasn't okay because the enemy
Mhm.
began to say to me, you weren't worthy. There was something about you that you did wrong. And this person had actually said to me, there was nothing that you did wrong. I just wasn't ready. This person actually
Mhm.
had given me the beautiful words a couple of years ago and said, "You've done the work. You've worked on your healing. You've
Mhm.
worked on forgiveness. You've gone to the therapy,
Mhm.
and I haven't done that. And so I can't give you what you're asking for." The person took away all of the ownership off of me, and the enemy turned around and slapped me upside my
Still.
head with it the other day.
Mhm.
And the Lord had I when I realized I had to take that thought captive. And as soon as I did it,
Yes.
the Lord began to minister to me, and He said He didn't have the capacity to hold
Mhm.
he didn't have the capacity to hold who you are. He didn't have the capacity to hold the way that you love. He didn't
Yes.
have the capacity to handle everything that you were giving. And so yes, you are worthy, and yes, you are enough.
Mhm.
And so like you said, you have to check your feelings.
Yes.
God, and to relinquish their rejection because it really
Mhm.
doesn't mind, it's
No.
it's like we love people, and if they don't have the capacity to hold it, they don't have the capacity, and there's nothing you can
This
do
is
about it,
Mhm.
man. Give us the right to be right. Oh my God. So you talked about the fact that you were married. So
Yes.
tell us that journey of marriage.
Wow. I at age 22 and a half, I got married. I was a June bride. And I was so crazy about my husband. He was my best friend. But come on now, Dr. Tamika. I should not have gotten married at
Same. I
23.
got married at 22.
It was like, girl, what is wrong with you? But I didn't know, but hindsight is 2020.
Right.
You learn, you grow, you know. And so a part of the reason why I got married, aside from the fact that I was crazy about him, because he was a cool dude, was because I had, like I said before, I was disconnected from my natural family for a while. So there was this yearning inside of me for connection and for family. Phenomenal family on both sides of his family, his paternal side, his maternal side, phenomenal family. But we all know that I shouldn't have gotten married at 22. We were married for 12 and a half years, and unfortunately, he passed away in 2010. And so it was, I mean, it was a journey just being someone's wife and then someone's mother, and just going through all the things that we had to navigate and go through as a young person. Uh, we didn't have the wisdom, we didn't have the mentorship, and no one talks about that. That young people, newly married people, really need mentors. They need people who have been seasoned and in marriage, and whether you are married young or you're married late in life, but you have never been married before. You need someone to say, child, that is no reason to fight. Go and sit yourself down.
Get yourself
it will
together.
all It'll be okay on Friday. Trust me, the world is not coming to an end.
Yeah.
But we didn't have that. So it was what it was. And so we were still friends, but because of the rough times and being young and not understanding the sacrifice, the death that you have to the death to yourself to become one. We didn't fully understand that. So it was a little rough at times. But in 2010, he did pass away.
Wow. First of all, I just gotta say I apologize because I had to bend down. Y'all, I'm 43 and I'm starting to feel it and I'm hot. And so I have my remote control. I just have to be transparent because I don't know why I thought I could be slick and like pick it up without like what am I doing? I was like, now I gotta tell everybody my stuff.
Like, oh, no one knows.
What you should have seen me. I literally took my feet because it fell down, and I took my feet and tried to lift it up. Like I tried to lift it up, and yeah, it was Elder K. How often do we try to do things and get away with stuff, and it just doesn't work? And like we just have
That's
to.
a lesson right there.
It's a whole lesson because I was like, Tamika, you just looked real stupid just now trying to bend over again. Because I really try to. I don't know if you saw me. I try to be slick. What? Like we can see you. Like
Hello, we can see you. You are not backstage.
we can see you, right? So I
Oh my
wanted to
goodness.
apologize for that, and I just had to just break it that and
It's
just be
fine.
transparent to y'all.
It's
I
fine.
had to turn on that AC for a hot second because your girl was hot. I was hot. I was hot.
It was the
Um,
lights.
yes. Okay, so you married for 12 and a half years and he passes
Yes.
away. So may I ask, did he pass
Yes.
away during the marriage or had the marriage dissolved?
No, we were still married.
Oh
We
wow.
were still married at the time of his death. He had
Wow.
had a massive stroke, and then a little over a year later, he passed away.
So
And
he was
so,
young.
yes, he was. He passed away in January, and his 40th birthday was in April.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So you're in your 30s now, right? Okay,
I
look,
was.
y'all, I promise I'm smart. I promise. So and you're and you're early in your 30s, actually.
I
You're
was 35.
34. Yeah, yeah. So
I'm
you're early.
34, 35.
How did you manage grief? And I mean, you have a child. How did you
Yes.
how did you handle that?
The only way that I could explain it is the moment we were in the emergency room, and he said he couldn't breathe. He felt like his tongue was swelling. And I remember them pushing me out of the room. And
Mm,
at that point, they began to go in to put in a trach. And I felt myself literally about to fall. And the only way that I could explain it, and for anyone, is I felt at that time, I felt my help. I felt like the Lord, stabilized me. And I honestly feel like for probably until the summer after he passed away, it was the Lord just taking me through the day to day, just taking me through everything I needed to do, because, and I knew that I needed to take care of my son. And so I have a strong sense of responsibility, right?
mm.
And so my first thought was, how am I going to tell him?
Yeah.
How am I going to tell him? So I needed to orchestrate a way that everyone knew before he knew, because everyone needed to support him because it was his dad. So his grandmother had to know first, his aunts, his uncles, everyone else had to know, and I had to allow them a moment to grieve, because it was a big loss to our family.
Mm,
And then my responsibility was to this young man.
wow.
And so I wouldn't allow myself to totally go to pieces, because I had my son who depended upon me, but he was watching me.
How old was your son?
He was 9. He
Wow.
turned 10 that coming August. He was 9. And so from the moment his father had the stroke until his father passed away, my son was always mature, meaning like he had a strong, strangely enough, he always had a strong sense of emotional intelligence as
Hmm.
a young man. But when his father was in the hospital, it was an interesting thing to see him transform and to mature, but he was still a child. And my promise to myself was always that I would allow my children to be children, because I didn't always have that luxury. And so he was still a child. And my sense of responsibility to him was, girl, get yourself together.
Hmm.
You could cry in the car, you could cry or do what you need to do, rail, scream, do whatever you need to do, but not in front of him.
So you definitely, it sounds like you did not fall into that space where you said to your son, okay, well, now you're the man of the house.
Oh, heck no.
How do you feel about that when people will say to a child, well, now you got to be the man of the house?
No, I think children should be children.
Yeah.
Allow them to be children. They have their entire lives to be adults. And it's not his responsibility to look after me, although he thought it was.
Hmm.
Here he is, 10, 11, 12 years old. And he would say, Mom, if you need anything, call me. Baby, you don't have a car. You don't have
You
a
want the
job.
job?
But I would say, okay. And to this day, if you need anything, let me know. Okay. But he was not the man of the house. He was the young man of the house. And that was his job, to be a child. I don't like when people push children to become adults before their time. We expose them, we have conversations with them that's inappropriate for their age group. And so
Come on.
my son was very familiar with the phrase, that's an adult conversation. And so, and I allow him to ask questions and be curious about relationships, about what happened and this and that. But if I felt it was inappropriate for him at that age, that was none of his business. And I would tell him that's an adult conversation. And I don't like when parents do it. And I probably will get a lot of
That's so
backlash for
crazy.
this. But even when young men turn 18, and if they're not going to college, and they're respectful, and they're working, and their parents say you have to pay half the rent or you got to get out, I think that's crazy in this day and time.
It's so funny. My daughter and I, we were having this conversation because my daughter, my oldest one, she loves Asian culture. And like
Hmm.
she's in college now, she's studying Chinese, so she's studying
Hmm.
Mandarin and stuff. And we had this conversation where she was like, it's a very American thing that we feel like at 18, we just kick our kids out of the house. And she was like, Mom, in other cultures, they don't do that. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. Kids, they stay there. They're still learning. They learn how to build a nest egg in a lot of places until they're ready to get married and leave. And so, no, I'm
Mhm.
actually with you on that, where it's like, listen,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with them putting something toward rent or something like that. But
Yes.
we it's like the moment they turn 18 and graduate high school, all of a sudden we just expect them to know what it's like to be an adult.
No.
And we still have to train them.
Yes. Make them responsible. Give them, he has responsibilities around the house. He has financial responsibilities around the house. But, truth be told, this is my home. This
Yeah.
is my house. You're
Yeah.
going to contribute because I need you to understand what it means to be a man and having responsibilities and paying your own way. But no,
Yeah.
no, mm-mm.
So, I mean, I don't know who you're gonna get flack from. It might be somebody, but it won't be from me because I mean, I'm just like, I don't know. And I definitely try very hard to raise my children to understand. But I'm
Mhm.
like, when they're in high school, by the time they hit really the second part of 10th grade, 11th grade, you're trying to train
Mhm.
them for that 12th grade year where it's like,
Yes.
and you're trying to coach because there's a point where we start coaching them in life. So
Yes.
I'm coaching you now to get prepared for college. And then now that you're
Mhm.
in college, I'm coaching you
Yes.
on how to interpersonal relationships between people. How do you
Mhm.
stand up for yourself? How do you work with a boss?
Yes.
How do you manage your time well? How do you learn to tell
Yes.
people no, I have to focus on myself? So we're now
Yes.
you're coaching them into adulthood. And so
Yes.
I don't see how we can shift that time. They're probably gonna yell at me too. I don't see it though.
And how does that happen automatically
Yeah.
without some real life experience? How does that happen? It
Yeah.
doesn't. And we have to give them time. Now, my son is respectful. He respects the house. We have house rules that all of us must follow,
Because it's your
right?
house. Yeah.
Yes. So, but like you said, we are their coach. We're no longer really the parent role. Now I'm coaching you into adulthood. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm giving you the benefit of my age, my wisdom, and you can do whatever you want to do with it, you know? But it's, I can't just say, you're not a bird. I'm not kicking you out the nest and hope you fly.
Right. And even with birds, they put their little birdlings, if that's what they're called, through their own little coaching process. They keep pushing them
Yes.
out of the nest until they learn how to use their
Yes.
wings. And so I
Yes.
think that's what we have to do also. So I do just want to ask you because I'm sure there's probably someone that's
Sure.
tuning and listening right now. What was that conversation like when you're having to say to him, "Listen, dad is no longer here." How were you
Mhm.
able to help him with that process? You talked about the family and understanding that they needed to
Mhm.
be there as a pillow and a
Mhm.
cushion for him. But how did you do that with your son?
Much prayer. After we told him and we were upset, we all went through the process, excuse me. We all went through the process of grieving and funeral arrangements, but even through the years, because we lived in New York, and even through the years of us transitioning and moving to Maryland, it was much prayer. And
Mm,
so, Dr. Tamika, I am a woman through and through. I never desired to be a man. And I know that I can
right.
teach my son to be a good person. I can teach him to love the Lord, to be honorable, to be integral. I can teach him all of that. But what I couldn't teach him is what is intricate, what is significant about being a man.
Come
And
on.
I understood that. So I prayed. I prayed before we left New York. I prayed when we came to Maryland. Lord, send us a village. Send us men who would be uncles who to my son, who would pour into him as if he's their own family. And I promise you, from that first year that we moved to Maryland until this day, the Lord has sent us a village. And it has been nothing but prayer. And I always said that, if I got married again, that the man wasn't just for me, he would be for our family. He would have to be a good fit for our family. So much prayer, calling the men in our lives that the Lord had given us to ask questions, or how do I navigate this? What do I say? And a lot of times they would say, I'll talk to him. And again, I'll say my son, he wasn't a bad kid. He's not, he's always been respectful, but he was a teenager. And we all know teenagers lose their mind. It doesn't matter, girl, boy, something happens after 12.
Something.
Something happens after 12. And it's just been, my life is a testament of what God can do and how he can answer a prayer. Because from that first year, he sent men and families, not just men, but he sent families, husbands and wives, and people who had children to be a part of our extended family. So I think that's how I did it. That's how I did it. I didn't do it by myself.
I love
No one
it.
was in the house. No one was in the house with us, but it was much prayer. We would drive. For 4 years, we drove to DC every other weekend because he was a part of a mentorship program.
Oh, wow.
Because that was important to me, that my son saw men that looked like him and who was able to teach him something that I wouldn't be able to teach him. And what's so interesting, I would sit there sometimes when I would go to pick him up, and I would hear like the last few words of the mentors talking to them. And I would chuckle to myself because I would think, oh, we talked about that. We talked about that. But it's just something about a man hearing it from another man, or a male hearing it from another man, that gives it more power, gives it more strength. And I understood it. So yeah, that's how I did it.
So let's talk about you, the woman. You're young when your husband transitions. I've been married twice and divorced, and there is an adjustment from, even though that was something that was chosen, there's an adjustment to now you have to sleep by yourself in the bed, right? A lot of people like to put a lot of stock in the physicality of everything. Sometimes it's just about having them around. Even when I didn't like him, I didn't realize how much I enjoyed having a man around. So you're young, and this is not your choice. No. And now you're alone raising a son. How do you, as a woman, navigate that space?
Wow. It's been a journey since my husband passed away, to say the least. I allowed myself some time to heal, to grieve, because he had already been sick for a year. And so when I finally decided to start dating, I went on some dates, I met some people. And then one day I said, Lord, I keep meeting the same person.
Uh-oh.
I am the common denominator. Ooh. So I decided at that time that I'm going to do a mancation, right? So at the time, I was young. I wasn't attached to anyone. So there were people that I was dating and hanging out with, if you would. And I had to tell them, I'm going to focus on me. So I wish you the best. And so I decided, they didn't believe me. They thought I was seeing someone. They thought I wasn't telling them the truth. They didn't really want to go.
You made people mad. Did they all think they were the only one? Like, because you said you had to tell some people. So
yes, ma'am.
Oh my God.
So I thought, I don't understand. I was like, I keep meeting the same person. So I decided that I was the common denominator. I did very well in math. And so it wasn't their fault. Yeah. And I decided that I was the common denominator. So at that point, I decided to go to counseling, and I made a decision that I wouldn't date in my mancation, because that's what I call it. In my mancation, I wouldn't date. I wouldn't have romantic phone calls. I wouldn't flirt. It was just me. Right? Wow. I didn't know how to navigate this. So I went to counseling. I was working on myself. And that's what I did. And so for 3 years, and after that time, I moved to Maryland. During that time, I moved to Maryland. And then I decided, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I could start dating again. Okay. I worked on myself.
Okay.
I worked on myself. I learned what to look for. And I just want to dial back for half a second.
Yeah.
Um, the common denominator was I kept meeting unavailable men, right?
Come on here. Come on.
And
Come on
so
here.
I'm like, why? Whether they're unavailable emotionally, physically, financially, you name all the unavailable, you name everything, and they were one or another was some sort of kind, some way unavailable. And I said, okay, enough is enough. But what I learned during that process on my mancation is you keep attracting what you are, sugar, because you're unavailable.
Uh-oh.
You're unavailable emotionally. Yeah, and I was like, yikes. I thought I'm all bad. I'm thinking I'm all
Listen.
the sugar, sugar, sugar. No, sis, it's you. And so that's what I learned about myself. And so I worked through it. I'm thinking I'm healed. I moved to Maryland,
Well, Elder,
and
real
then I
quick,
mhm,
where did this epiphany come from? Because a lot of times we come to epiphanies like when our heart gets broken or something. You just one day were like, I'm the common denominator.
yeah.
That is so
It could have
mature.
been, I'm going to say it was the Holy Spirit because I don't think I'm that smart. I know math,
Gotcha.
but I don't think I'm that smart. And so it was like, I'm the common denominator because I'm like, I keep meeting unavailable people. He's unavailable emotionally, he's unavailable this way. And I think the last straw was a gentleman who was separated, he wasn't divorced. And I have a rule, separated is not single.
That's
And
it.
so he was persistent. And so we went out on a few dates, and I said, Keisha, what is wrong with you? You're breaking your rules. These are your rules. Knock it off. And so I stopped seeing him as well as the other gentleman that I was, just going out. We were going
Yeah.
to dinner, hanging out, nothing. But it was I met during that time, I met the imposter. And
Uh-oh.
so so I had to work on me to figure out why I was meeting these unavailable people. And so when again, let me dial back to Maryland. I moved to Maryland and I thought, oh, okay, I'm good. I worked on me. The Lord has worked on me. I've been to counseling. I can do this. I can spot it a mile away. And so, yeah.
All the things.
Huh?
I said all the things.
All those things. And then what is it, 2024? And then 2014, the year 2014 rolls around. And again, here comes the Lord. I need you to dedicate yourself to me.
So the Lord says this to you. When
Yes.
you think you're ready
When
to,
I think I'm ready.
that's what happened to me.
I'm
I
ready to
I
be
was like,
single
Lord,
and ready to mingle.
I'm like, Lord, I've been divorced now almost 4 years, and I'm thinking Lord's about to be like, girl, it's time for you to get married. I'm about to send you the man of your dreams. And he says to me, give me a year, no distractions. And I'm like, okay.
Well, praise God for your year. I didn't have a promise of a year.
Huh.
I did not. The Lord told me to dedicate myself to Him. And because as a young lady, I didn't grow up in church.
Oh, wow.
But I did not. I did not. I mean, my mother would send us to church. We would go to, family members' church and different things like that. But my mother didn't take us to church every Sunday the way my son is a pew baby. He is a pew baby. And so I didn't grow up in church. So the Lord was like, dedicate yourself, not rededicate, sis, because you never dedicated yourself to me.
We never had a dedication.
We didn't do that. So I was like, this crazy. This can't be the Lord. Like, really? And so he kept telling me to dedicate myself to him. So I called, I said, no, let me backtrack. I'm sorry. I'm like, well, how am I supposed to do this?
Yeah.
And so it was like accountability partners. So I have actually 6 accountability partners, but 5 of them was with me on March 8th, 2014. And so they prayed for me, they poured into me. I told them, I made a vow to them, not just to God, that I would be accountable to them, that I would call them if I fall, if I was struggling, and I would repent to them if I needed to.
Wow.
And I asked that they would, would pray for me, restore me, and please don't chastise me because you got to think, I mean, at this point, I am 40 years old, almost 40. I wasn't 40, but I'm almost 40 years old. And I lived with my husband before we got married. So and I was a minister at this point, and I knew that I should restrain because I'm a minister of the gospel.
Hello. Hello.
But my husband, my husband was alive. So we were good. So there was a discipline that I did not know.
Oh, come on.
And I could talk about it, but I never had to walk that discipline
Ooh.
because I went into ministry with my husband in my bed every single night.
Come on.
So I did not understand that there was a discipline that I was lacking. And I'm thinking, I'm preaching, I'm teaching, I'm praying. What? And I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was a discipline that I did not yet grasp.
And so tomorrow you're actually
Mhm.
celebrating a milestone.
10 years.
10 years of
10 years of being abstinent.
girl.
Yes, 10 years. Oh my word.
Praise
Where
the
did the time
Lord.
go?
I don't know if I should say congratulations, if I should have like some balloons or something. 10 years. My
Mhm.
God. Did you think it was going to be 10 years?
Never.
Yeah.
Never. I would have never thought 10 years. I would have never thought that I would still be single, and it's been 14 years after my husband passed away because I love relationship, right?
Yes.
I love relationship, I love companionship, I love partnership. So I thought, oh, I'm going to get married again.
Yeah.
The Lord's gonna do a quick work. And people are going to hear about my story and they're gonna be like, oh, he did it for you, sis. He could do it for me. No, that wasn't my story.
You're so funny. I love the fact that you've been transparent about even the part about being a minister, because that's literally me, where
Mhm.
I'm walking in ministry and all of the things, but I had been married for almost 13 years. Well, I was married twice, so I spent much of my adult life married.
Mhm.
um
Yes.
and so then to not be married the second time, I was married for almost 13 years, and then to not
Mhm.
be married, like I said, sometimes you don't like each other. It doesn't matter. I don't have to like you for that part, and like you said, there is a discipline, and I never had that discipline ever.
No.
You know, I mean,
Mm-mm.
I grew up in church, but I still did what I wanted to do, to just be honest. And
Absolutely.
so when the Lord asked me, or when he said to me, give me a year, because the thing is, the Lord will tell you to do something. It's up to us to accept it.
Yes.
I was going to ask one question, but I want to park here for a second. When the Lord told you to consecrate yourself, was it an
Mhm.
immediate yes? Or did you have to think about it?
I had to mull it over.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mull it over long.
Yeah.
Um, because I know to be in the will of the Lord is always the best place to be, even
Mhm.
though I didn't know how I would be able to do it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I was like, are you really telling me to do this? Like,
Yeah.
this can't be real. I could do it. I don't need to formalize it. I don't need to do anything. And when I decided to do it, I have a certificate, I brought a ring,
I love it.
um, the sisters came to my house and we prayed, and then we all went to dinner. And so to this day, I will call them, I'll cry, um, even when I'm having thoughts and feelings, and when the woman is like warring with the minister or warring with the spirit.
Yeah.
And so I have, um, but it has been an amazing, amazing. Did I say it's been amazing? extremely difficult at times
Yeah.
because you don't know how to date. I didn't know how to date,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
period.
think I really know how to. Yeah.
No, but then you don't know how to date. It's like, so we can't go. You can't come by at 9 o'clock. We can't Netflix and chill.
No.
I
Yeah.
can't just pop up at your house and no,
Mm-mm.
no, no, no.
And a lot of
And
that
no
I
one,
think even has to do with being honest with yourself.
yeah.
About yourself. Like for me, and that's one of the things I've learned now, my year, God said give me a year. But when my
Mhm,
year came, I said, God, I'm gonna keep rocking with you until you release me to date someone. So, here it
mhm,
is. It's at the time of us taping this, it's March. My year was over in October of 2023. I'm still on this man
mhm,
fast. And it truly is by choice. And I agree with you now. When the Lord first said to me, give me a year, no distractions, I immediately said, yes, sir. I was like, yes, okay. But the reality of it hit me that night into the next day. And I remember being devastated. And I cried
mhm,
and I thank God that I had a support system. And I called up my
mhm,
cousin and I just was like, why would God do this? Like, I don't
mhm.
understand. And I'm like, am I not supposed? I mean, it was all the thing. What am I not supposed to want to be married? I didn't
Did I
understand.
do something wrong?
Like,
It,
look,
yeah,
at this point, I'm keeping myself. There was no discipline,
yes,
but I was at least keeping myself,
yes.
and I was proud of myself. I had been keeping myself for a long time, and it was by
Mhm,
choice. And I'm like, I thought you were going to tell me I was ready. But
mhm.
I will tell you the other side of that, yes, even though, like you said, sometimes it can be hard. I would have never
Very.
imagined what my life would have been like. And I don't regret that yes at all. I
Mhm,
don't regret it. Let's talk about a little bit more about what is the struggle like when you're in this space of consecration, because some people don't like the word man fast. People probably don't like hearing mancation. I don't really care, but whatever. But okay, consecration, because it's not
yeah,
even just about
that's what it
abstinence.
was.
It's beautiful that you can say, look, it's been 10 years of me being abstinent, 10 years of celibacy, but you've been consecrated too.
Yeah.
And being in right standing with God is that's different than just being celibate and abstinent.
Mhm.
Because that literally, the celibacy, the abstinence, that is a small piece of
That's a
being
small.
consecrated. Talk to us for just a second about what were some of the struggles for you within this time, that come about.
I think I was struggling how to balance my humanity
Mm,
with pleasing God.
wow.
Doesn't that sound crazy?
No.
My humanity will never please him. I went through this period where I was trying to date the way I dated before, but although I was keeping myself for whatever reason, it
Yeah.
seems extremely tough. It seemed harder than before that I made the decision. And then there were people who wanted to challenge my decision. There were people, and even sometimes I was the people who
Uh-oh.
who were thinking, how far can I go without going too far? Because I
Uh-oh.
was thinking that. Well, how far can I go, Lord,
Yeah.
without going too far? Now you have to ask the question, Keisha, it's too far.
What's the real definition of sex? Like, look, are we back in the Bill Clinton era? Like, you know
Yes, let's
what I
not.
mean?
Yeah, let's not.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And when I realized that it was the sex, like you said, was a small part of it.
Hmm.
It was about soul ties. It was about my soul. It was about erasing things, removing things that the Father never intended for to be attached to me, to be associated with me.
Mm,
I remember it just it was, and then I realized it was about my heart.
wow.
If I went too far, meaning if I kissed too long or I did this, there would be a level of guilt that would be associated with that. And I was like, Lord, what is all of this?
Yeah.
Right. So I struggled with thinking, with not understanding at first that the consecration was more about my heart than my body. It
Mm.
was more about transforming my mind to think the way he wants me to think. That I am his bride.
Wow.
And if I engage in anything that would be considered adulterous,
Wow.
then I'm committing adultery on him because I'm his bride.
Come on and teach us today.
And it was, I can't tell people enough. It's not just about the sex.
Mm-mm.
Although the sex opens the door for many things, but it's about the heart.
Hey, you, so I just wanted to break in for a moment and ask you if you've gotten your copy of The Man Fast. If you haven't had a chance to get a copy of the book, I want to encourage you to do that and to take your consecration to a completely different level. Since our creation, God desired that his daughters would always be valued as gifts. And somewhere, I don't know where it happened, a woman's worth was lost in translation, and we place all of our stock and affirmation into our looks, into our body shape, and what lies between our thighs. But within the book, I take you into the most vulnerable time of my life for over a year, where the Lord had me be set apart and consecrated. And within these pages, you're going to learn how to love yourself through God's eyes, heal and repair your broken heart. You'll learn how to break soul ties and prepare for the man of your prayers. Now, inside this book, you're also going to encounter prayers of healing and deliverance, devotion scriptures, and a prayer journal. And you're also going to have reflection questions and healing activities. So if you are interested in grabbing your copy of the book, go to themanfastbook.com. And now back to the show.
Dr. Tamika, today my heart is I want him to be pleased. And I've had to walk away from men, even a man that I thought would be my husband, because the Holy Spirit was like, but you made a promise.
Wow.
And yeah, so my flesh wanted companionship. My flesh wanted to be next to someone, wanted to sleep with someone. To this day, and I'll be completely transparent, I have a body pillow because
Yeah.
it brings comfort to me.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm replacing the body pillow with a man or I think I said that backwards,
I
but
get it. Yeah.
but it's comfort to me to have the body pillow. And so it's more about what's going on in my heart, that my heart really needed to be set aside. It needed to be purged. It needed to understand what was really acceptable and what
Wow.
was not pleasing. There was a war going on with what people said was okay or wasn't okay, and with what God really said was okay.
So who determines, like, when you get back into the dating space, who determines what is pleasing and what isn't? Is that Do you think that there is a blueprint somewhere for us to follow? Because, for example, we know fornication is not okay. That is a sin. So that's one thing we know.
Yeah.
You got to take that off the table. But the other stuff, is there a blueprint for us to find somewhere? Or is that something that happens between the individual and God?
I think that's something that happens between the individual and God. And
Mm.
what you're doing, this movement, because this is not just a book, it's not just a podcast, it's a movement. Because I didn't have someone walking alongside of me. I was praying that the Lord would take away my hot bloodedness. And so this older woman said, no, 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 baby, don't pray that. You pray he put it on simmer. You pray that the Lord puts that on simmer, honey, because your husband's going to want that. But there isn't a blueprint. The blueprint is between you and God. And God shows you what your triggers are. What triggers you to want to do something more that would dishonor him.
Uh-oh.
And so it could be a small trigger, right? So something as simple as you're walking with someone and you're at dinner and they put their hand on the small of your back. It seems something very innocent, but for someone where let's say their love language is touch, It could be, something that triggers one thing
Yeah.
that can be like a snowball and trigger to something else. So I think it's between you and God. Sometimes you have to go cold turkey, and the Lord has to show you that this is a trigger for this. I remember, and it sounds so crazy. I remember when I was younger, they would say, this is back before marijuana was legal, right? And so I think it's only been legal for a short period of time. They
Yeah.
would tell people, don't smoke cigarettes, don't smoke marijuana because it's the gateway drug.
Gateway.
Yes. So it opens the gate for other things. And so what the Lord began to show me is that certain things would be gateways for me. It
Hmm.
would open, although they seem innocent, and it may be very innocent for Dr. Tamika, but for Kishia, it opens up a
Come
gate
on.
and it allows things to go in and out of that gate. And then you think, oh, it's just a little of this, it's just a little of that. But before you know it, you've put yourself in a dishonorable position where it, and it's not about the sex. It's about my heart. My heart at that point, my heart isn't toward God. My heart is trying to figure out how to please my flesh. And so what you're doing is going to help people figure out
Amen.
what is the blueprint for my life.
Hmm.
How do I chip away at these things I don't need? How do I find out where I have set up idols in my life? We don't realize that, sex can become an idol,
That's it.
touching can become an idol, all sort of relationships, because come
Yes.
on now, we can make relationships an idol. And the Bible has not changed. Nothing
No.
shall be before him.
Nothing.
Nothing. He is first. He is foremost. He is number one. And if we try and we set up idols before him, we set up relationships, we set up our family members, and those are gateways for some people.
And Tiffany Montgomery,
Mhm,
I love how she talks about idolization. She has her
mhm.
definition where she says anything that you put before obedience to God is an idol. And
Ooh,
I was when I heard her say that, I was like, that is the simplest definition.
simplest.
Like, because we think an idol is us, actually having a statue somewhere, but
Mhm.
anything that you put before obedience to God. So that's your conversation. And I love what
Ooh.
you just said. Does this dishonor God? Does my
Mhm,
conversation dishonor you, Lord?
mhm.
Right? Does the way that I was thinking, because if we got to take every thought captive, God, the way that I just thought about
Yes.
this man, and I know he is beautifully put together, but did that
Yes.
dishonor you? Because I don't have every
Yes.
right to think about him like that,
Mm,
I have found
mm-mm.
myself really just being very focused on all of those different things, and I love the fact that you talked about discipline because don't have sex is the easy thing. It's not easy. So I'm not saying it's not easy to put it down, but it's
I
the
understand.
big thing that I can't do
Mhm,
this. But the
mhm.
discipline is now you can't masturbate.
No.
You got to throw away your adult toys.
Come
You
on,
can't
child.
pornography, you can't be watching
Can't
pornography.
do that. Mm-mm.
All those things are gateways and they also are spiritual gates, right? Your thoughts. As a man
Yes.
thinketh, so is he. So I can't be sitting around
Yes.
daydreaming. I'm gonna tell you, I used to have a difficult time with daydreaming. I
Mhm.
loved to daydream. And I used to really love it. And that was one of the things that I thought was gonna be really hard for me. And actually it kind of was because I'm a writer and I love romance, like
Mhm.
Hallmark. I'm gonna be watching Hallmark tonight. I can't wait. But I would love to sit around and daydream about my next
Mhm.
relationship. And I
Mhm.
knew I was gonna have to stop with the imaginations. First of all, what was that Second Corinthians 10 and 5? Casting
Yeah.
down all imaginations.
Yeah.
What are your
It's heavy, high
imaginations?
thing.
Yeah, and those things, I literally could daydream any time of day for hours. I would have full conversations. I would set what my house was gonna look like. I would be daydreaming about the arguments we would have, the way we would make up, all of those things. And
Mhm.
when I realized, Meek, it's been like over a year since you've done that. I literally had to give that over to the Lord
Mhm.
because it was not honorable, those imaginations. It would have me thinking
Mhm.
about people I had been with in the past, you know? Um, I want to ask you, what triggers your loneliness? The other day, I had a maintenance man that had to stop by for a ticket that I put in back in December. And he stops by out of the blue. First of all, scared the mess out of me. I'm like working in my office and he beats on the door like the police. So I'm scared, right? I'm like, I go to the door and I'm like, dude, the way you like knocked on my door, And he was just like, yeah, all of a sudden now he real smooth. Yeah, I'm a little heavy handed. I said, oh, okay. He stood at like the perfect height and he walked into my home familiar.
Mm.
Okay. So he walks into my home um with an authority. Now his authority is I'm the maintenance guy. I came in here to fix something. But I had to quickly catch what was happening because when he walked
Mhm.
in, we're like this. And I had to look up at him. I said, well, what are you doing here? Yeah, I said, did I, what, I'm like stuttering now. What did I call you? Like, he's like, yeah, you got a ticket for your toilet that's broke. I'm like, oh yes. Yes, 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 yes. I'm like, now I'm all corny and like, whatever. But I remember in that moment, I'm like, yes, yes, yes,
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, it's not flushing right. But for me, I realized like, oh, I kind of missed companionship where,
Mhm.
um, just in that moment, like I almost felt like I felt a yearning to hug him. And it
Mhm.
wasn't the him. I just think the woman in me was
Yes.
yearning for the companionship of a man. And it was like there was something that was broken. And for me, what was kind of hard for me after, being divorced was those things that I had to take care of myself. Like if your
Mhm.
battery goes dead, like, I'm used to having a man that does that. Like I didn't want to have to learn how to do those things. I don't want to do those things. The toilet's not working. I don't want to have to lift up the thing in the back and pull it. Like I don't want to do that stuff. So here's a man, he's coming and it felt like he's saving the
Mhm.
day. Like my light in my bathroom had blown and the office was like, you got to buy your own light. Man, that light's been I had a lamp inside of my bathroom for like 6 weeks because like you want me to go find the right light bulb? Like, what are we talking about here? So when he gets
Oh,
here and
wow.
he sees it, I'm like, dude, don't laugh at me. And he's like, hey, somebody has some lights. This ninja goes and gets lights and comes and puts them up. And I'm like, you're a rock star. But the
You're a
woman
rock
in me
star.
was like,
Yes.
I miss that.
Mhm.
That's what triggers me to feel lonely for a minute. I had to take that to God. What triggers your loneliness?
Household things too.
Yeah.
If I need something done and my son is at work,
Mm.
household things. And also some gatherings, not all the time. And so I can't tell you when it will happen. And it could be a party, a birthday party, a baby shower, it could be a
Could be a
wedding,
church service
it could
sometimes.
be church. I
Yeah.
was going to just say that. It could be church and gatherings where families are together. And so I already said that I'm a transplant from New York to Maryland.
Yeah.
So I don't have that nucleus family with me. And as my son is getting older, he has his own life, he's working. So sometimes I'm traveling by myself or I'm traveling with a family. So that will trigger me. It could be church, but it's just something about when it's time to wrap up and go and everyone's getting ready to go. She's gathering the children. He's getting her code. It's just something about gatherings that occasionally will trigger my lonely.
And so then what do you do when you feel that?
I put on music. I
Huh.
do. I do. I put on music. I pray, of course, but I put on music. I'll call my mother, one of my best girlfriends. I'll do something that brings me joy. And so one of my best girlfriends, I'll call her and we'll crack, we'll laugh or she'll say, "What's wrong with you?" And I'll say nothing and we'll start talking. I'll turn music on, but I won't do something super, super sentimental, but I'll do something that brings me joy. I'll read a book, I'll read the scripture, I'll read something that I know I enjoy
I like that 'cause
to
this is a
bring.
new space for me because,
Yeah.
for a while it was like, you don't have a right to date anyway because you're on this journey. And so, like, all of that was completely shut down. I don't
Mhm.
remember really feeling lonely at all during that God mandated consecration time. But now that
Mhm.
this has been chosen, and I'm like, I had said to my mom the other day, I said, I just feel like there's like no man in sight. And mom was like, for now, you don't know what my mom, she talks through her teeth sometimes. For now, you don't know what God's gonna do. I'm like, you're absolutely right, lady. You're right.
You
You're
don't
right.
know.
You're
You don't
absolutely.
know.
But I have learned so many lessons. My father asked me as I was coming to the end of writing the book in December because the Lord gave me, I literally had like 3 days. He said, you have to finish it before the year is over. And I ended up finishing it December 31st at 11:57 p.m. But like the day before, I'm talking to my father and he's like, what do you think you've learned? When did you know that you became like, when did you know that you were content with God? Um, and so I want to ask you, what have
Yes.
you learned in this process?
That God is enough. That me and God is enough. Um, and a lot of the roots that I worked through, I went to counseling. Um, we we did what was, how do they do, what do they say? When they cut a tree down and they leave the stump there, sometimes they'll cover the stump so the stump doesn't grow.
Hmm.
But you didn't take out the root. So
Wow.
at any given time, if you uncover the stump and allow sunlight or water to get to it, the stump can regrow
I
and the
didn't
tree
know
can
that.
grow again because you did not uproot
Come on.
the root. And
Woo.
so I learned that there was still a root of rejection there. There
Wow.
was still a root of abandonment that was there. And I had to learn that God really was enough and I am enough. I don't need a relationship, although I like one, you
Mhm.
know. I learned discipline that
Come on.
yes, that it's not so much what you say out your mouth. I can tell you all day long, it's been X many days or X many years. It's what's done in private that really, really matters.
I
And
love it.
it's the hard things that really, really matters. And it's okay when people don't understand.
So you've dealt with people not understanding this
Oh,
space.
yes. Mhm.
I was talking to you the
Married
other
women, single women. Yeah.
and so okay, because I know somebody's wondering, how do you navigate that? Because I definitely have people that are like, you should just date. You're still young. You should just let people take you out for a free meal. I'm like, I can buy my own meal. And quite frankly, I cook better than the restaurants that people like to take me to.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna go somewhere for a free meal. How do you how have you learned where it just rolls off your back now? Or do you still have to
It
go through
does. No, I no longer have to go through a process. It rolls off my back. I just chuck. Yeah, I chuckle and I say, "Wow, it's really sad." And I'm not just talking about people who I'm talking about Christian women.
Come on.
And they single Christian women don't always understand that, or they want to talk about it, but when we're being really, really real about it, they don't want to talk about the true consecration. They don't want to talk about what it really means to be set aside, to set yourself apart. I had someone roll her eyes at me and said it couldn't be me. Okay,
Okay.
all right, sis, it's fine.
I love the sis.
I've been accused of being super deep.
Yes.
It's
Have
okay.
you been accused of being judgmental? I've been accused of being
Oh,
judgmental.
yes, 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 yes. I've been accused of being judgmental. I've been accused of so many different things. And I said, listen, what I decide for my life is what I decide for my life. What you decide for your life is what you decide for your life. I am charged to love you. It's not my job to judge you. You can do what you want to do. You like it? Hey, go with God. So yeah. Mhm,
Dr. Cindy Trim, I happen to watch, she was on somebody's podcast not too long ago,
mhm.
and she didn't get married until I think like in her 60s. And
Yes,
she talked about how
recently, my
yeah, she was like, it was very recent, and she was like, she was
yes.
okay with that. Like, she talked about she had gone on
Mhm.
dates and different things like that, but she was okay waiting until God presented her with the right spouse. I want to ask you, what have been the benefits of righteous living for you that you see?
Um, I feel like my prayers are not hindered.
Come on.
And real talk, when I say that, I mean, I've always prayed, but when I wasn't living righteously, a part of me, if the person wasn't healed, set free, or delivered, if what I prayed for did not occur, I would think maybe because I was doing whatever. Maybe the Lord wasn't listening to me because I was doing whatever. I live guilt free.
Yes.
I literally live guilt free because one, I'm not doing anything to be guilty. And two, I know that those things that I may do to be guilty, whatever it is, I'm short tempered at times. I can ask for forgiveness and I'm not wearing down the grace that I pray He never stops giving
Come
me.
on, Lord, because God knows you know me. If I'm hungry, I'm gonna have an attitude. I'm like, listen, y'all got to get out of this room
Yes.
because my
And so
attitude.
I think there's a freedom, there
Yes.
is a disconnection. So let's say when you do start dating again, where before, let's say you're seeing someone for 2 months, 3 months, or whatever, you're spending a lot of time together, and then all of a sudden you realize, no, this is not going to work, or they realize, no, this is not going to work. The cutoff game is so much easier. The
Mm.
bounce back is just so much easier. It's like, oh, okay, all right, and we're good.
And we're good.
So, and we're good.
So then you kind of don't take it personal. See, because I'm
No.
not there yet. I haven't necessarily dated yet. I've had, in terms of people that have been like that have come at me, I've had pastors that have come at me. I've had male pastors, bishops, apostles, they're all the titles, and they've literally said to me, I want to derail you from your process. And they, on one hand, are like going off saying, yeah, I can see how you're man bashing men. I want to derail you from the process. Hey, can I take you out next week? Listen, this is why people don't take us seriously. And this is
Well,
why it's important for us to be consecrated and not be
yes.
uh, um, impressed by somebody's title. And
Mhm.
But I have not dated yet. And so yeah, that cutoff thing, I'm pretty sure it's going to be different for me because I was always a super needy woman, and for me, my body was currency. It was the way that it was my barometer for how somebody felt about me. It was so off, but the
Mhm.
enemy implanted that in my life at the age of 5
Mhm.
when I was molested, and so but when sex enters, like there's a spiritual thing that happens, and yes, there's a chemical thing that happens too, and so yeah, to be
Yes.
able to date without that is going to be different. I'm looking forward to that,
Mhm.
you know.
Yes, and finding other levels of intimacy,
Mm,
of getting to know a person because sex heightens everything. It
yeah.
does. Because you could like someone, remember, you would like someone like, "Oh, they're really nice, they're intriguing, they're intelligent," and then you have sex, and all of a sudden, they're like the best thing since sliced bread. But if you peel back the layer, that chemical that transformation that happens in your brain,
Yep.
you look at the person, oh, the shine comes off.
It's like the
And
Lord completely just wipes. He'll wipe that away. I mean, because it's oxytocin. It's literally the same chemical that is released when we give birth, and that's what connects us to our children as women. It's the same thing that's released when we eat a bucket of ice cream, if that's what we like, or a bucket of chicken, because it's a reward center. So when you like,
Mm,
I talk about that in the book. I actually kind of go into the scientific piece of that. I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to minimize it, but I'm trying to minimize it, because when we're talking about I used to always be like, I can't help it. Like, my body wants what it wants. Like it sounds so stupid now, but I said all the things. And I'm just like,
We all have.
yeah, and I'm like, so if at the end of the day, this connection that I have with the person is the same connection as if I smoked crack, ate a pint of ice cream, ate a bunch of cookies, if it really is the same exact thing, I really can have rulership over this thing. I can have
Mhm.
authority over it. I'm not going to eat a pint of ice cream. It's going to make me sick. I'm not going to
Mhm.
go and get on drugs because I don't want to get hooked on that. And so,
Mhm.
as a woman, I remember I used to always feel like if I could just put it on him real good, he's going to stay. And men are not like that. Men don't care.
Mhm.
It could be really
Mhm.
great, but if they don't love you, they don't love you. And there's really
Mhm.
nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I would rather wait, God. I would rather
Mhm.
trust you with my heart than to give my heart and my body to someone who does not have the capacity and who is not
Mhm.
deserving. And the thing is, I've learned sometimes God says no because he knows that you deserve better.
You deserve better.
What final thing would you say to someone who's at any point in this process? What is God leading you to say to our audience as we close out?
Mm. Trust God.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, sometimes it's hard to trust ourselves because we've made so many decisions that didn't turn out the way we would have liked them. Or we get high off our own decisions because we made so many good decisions and it turned out wonderfully. So you're not certain if you can do it. But I say trust God. He knows better. He knows better than you do. He knows every single thing. Trust God. He loves you and he wants to preserve you. It's not a punishment. He's not trying to punish you because he wants you to consecrate yourself. Consecration just simply means to separate. And when we separate, it makes us better. When he separates us, he sifts us like wheat. He sifts us, but he doesn't sift us to destroy us. He sifts us to bring out the good part so that he can make it even better. So trust God. When you're sad, trust God. When you're lonely, trust God. And if I could say one last thing, trust God and get you some really good accountability partners, people who will pray for you even when you're having a weak moment. Not people who will pray for you and speak life into you, even if you make a mistake and fall. They won't condemn you, but they will restore you. The Bible says that when a brother has fallen, you who are spiritual restore,
Mm.
and so get you some people around you who will speak life into you and who will restore you when you're weak and even if you fall. But most of all, trust God.
Even that's powerful of what you just said. And I'm not that could get us started on a whole nother subject, but just who we surround ourselves with, that word, that restoration. I don't think we realize how powerful our connections really are. And
Yeah.
sometimes I would even say for the one where you've been walking through this process,
Hmm.
you might be the one that has to do the restoration in your
Yeah.
system, right? So don't be judgmental. It doesn't matter what people say, because people who say they
Yeah.
call us judgmental and a church freak and all that stuff, I'm like, it's because you're out fornicating. And you feel convicted. And I've had to let people know,
Yeah.
it's like, I didn't judge you. We had this conversation because you brought this up. Like, I
Hmm.
wasn't running around on a tangent talking about me. So, but that's one of the things I definitely had to make sure that I'm saying to the Lord, Lord, help me not to judge. Help me not to be too harsh on somebody.
Hmm.
Help me to recognize when somebody's in a process where, no, I'm
Yes.
not babying you, but if I have to be in the process to restore my brother or my sister. So that is so
Hmm.
powerful. Elder K, thank you so much for your time. I mean, you have
Thank
a
you.
thousand and one things to do, but thank you for being here. This has been so so powerful, so powerful. And I pray I can't wait to be at your wedding, because I'm gonna be there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there, like,
Yes,
loud and
ma'am.
everything. I'll be like, yes. She waited for this. She sacrificed for this. Okay.
Eh,
I'm gonna be like, Kishia, when you going home? Y'all need to get out of here. Y'all been at this reception for 20 minutes. You can go. You can go.
it's time to go.
You can go now. Like, it's okay. We can eat without you. It's all good, girl. Go and get your man. So, listen,
Oh, I love it.
this has been another episode of the Man Fast podcast. I hope that you were uplifted. I want you to stay connected to Elder Kishia. Tell people how they can reach you.
I am on Facebook. I am Kishia Wilson-Robinson on Facebook. On Instagram, you could search my name also on Instagram, but I'm Kishia Cakes with a K on IG.
And y'all, it's not because of her cakes, it's because she is a baker. So get your mind out of the gutter. Somebody was thinking Kishia Cakes. No, and not those cakes, not those.
No, not those cakes.
She's a baker. She bakes from scratch. Okay, those cakes.
Those are the cakes.
I had to bring some people under subjection. They're like, oh, she talking about her cake. Talking about she's been celibate for 10 years. Talking about Kishia Cakes. No, it's real cake. So y'all get yourself together. And you guys connect with us, themanfast.net. Make sure you do that. Also, like, subscribe, and share this video out. And join us on Monday for our Bible study. And until next time, remember that I love you, that you were created to make God famous, and He has anointed you to do hard